Alrighty, I've got my notebook with all my notes ready to go. What's up, guys? It's been a minute since I sat down and made a video, so I feel like uncomfy, but here we are. The most requested video, also maybe the only requested video on my channel, is an ankle update. So as some of you might know, I had a rostrum surgery with a deltoid repair about a year ago. So this is going to be my 1 year update. So if you haven't watched any of my other ankle videos, this should kind of give you a good overview of all of it, so you don't have to go watch all of those. But if you want more detail broken up into like monthly updates, then you guys can go check those out on my page, and I'll link them up here. I've got my little notebook with me where I kept a lot of notes, so hopefully I can get through this in kind of an organized manner. I'll also put all the sections down below so you can skip ahead or whatever you're interested in. So I'm going to give you a quick little backstory on all things ankle, why I got the surgery, what led me to getting the surgery in the first place, how I was diagnosed so that we knew what to do in the surgery, more details into the actual surgery itself, and then a quick timeline overview of my progression as far as like walking and running and lifting and all that kind of stuff. Some of my top must-haves that you absolutely need for a smooth recovery. I'm gonna quickly touch on kind of like the mental side of things, the ups and downs, and then I will end with my overall feelings on my decision to get the surgery and how I'm feeling now. So if you're interested in that, stick around and let's jump right into it. So I'm just gonna give a quick backstory on kind of like what led me here. Some of you might already know based on other videos, but if you're new and you've never seen another video of mine, then just this is for you. So pretty much I have just a history of chronic ankle sprains. Both of my ankles are actually pretty bad, but my left one is definitely the worst one. That's the one I got surgery on. So basically, I knew in 2014 that this was a problem. I went and saw an ankle surgeon or a orthopedic surgeon, and he told me that I needed surgery then, so in 2014, but I had another season of college and I was concerned about the recovery potentially interfering with professional opportunities, so I decided to push it back. I played all of my professional career and collegiate career. Holy cow, that's the tongue twister. Why is collegiate career hard for me to say? Anyways, with like so much tape on my ankle, sometimes tape and brace just to not roll it during a game, but just chronic sprains through basketball and soccer and skateboarding and who knows what else. Basically, there's like 3 main ligaments on the outside of your ankle, and I kind of like destroyed 2 of them. They were basically not even connected anymore. And then there was one kind of holding everything together. So I knew that that was a problem. I knew the ligaments were either stretched or torn and were not going to get better. I had done ankle rehab every day basically for a decade, and it only really just kept me like on the field. Like I literally could not even imagine kicking or especially like striking a ball without my ankle tape. Like I didn't have the ability really to lock it. Another thing that I think is important to mention, and if you're experiencing this, it might be like a good signal to go see a surgeon or go see a specialist, because hold on, let me fix something. Sorry about that. So as I was saying, one other thing that I think is important to mention is by the time that I knew I needed surgery and there was no avoiding it, was when I started spraining my ankle with minimal swelling and minimal pain. So the sprain stopped feeling like a pop. When you sprain your ankle, you feel like this kind of intense pop on the outside of your ankle. It typically swells really big, almost bigger than a broken ankle, and you bruise and you get like a golf ball or a tennis ball on the side of your ankle, and it hurts for a really long time. I think the thing that started first was I stopped getting swollen. Like I probably stopped getting super swollen in college. So like 2015, 2014, I would sprain my ankle, but it would stop getting that tennis ball on the side of it. It would just hurt. And then as I got more and more ankle sprains, it stopped popping as loud. So when I went down or someone came through and I like completely turned over, it would still pop, but it was not as severe. And I would say like the initial pain was similar. It would still hurt really bad right away. Like if you've sprained your ankle, you know, but it would calm down faster and then it wouldn't swell. And when things swell, that impedes the healing process. So that's why a lot of times when you have an injury, you'll try to get swelling down first because it makes the healing process faster. The longer you're swollen, the longer the healing process is. So I wouldn't ever get swollen. So then my healing process was cut down from like 4 weeks for something like that to like 1 week. So I'd still have a lot of pain, but it would just get better faster. So when you kind of hear that, you think that that's like a positive, but in reality, it really was because I barely had any ligaments left to sprain. So it was spraining so easy. And if I just chronically was spraining it, what happens is on the inside of my ankle, I was starting to have just significant damage to the cartilage in between those bones. I was getting like bruised cartilage damage, and bruised bones. So the inside of my ankle started to hurt so bad, basically constantly. So I couldn't really do anything without pain there. So I would say if you're having sprains, you know, if you're an athlete or even not, and you just have chronic sprains, when it gets to that point where you stop getting swollen and you stop feeling that extreme pain with this sprain, you might want to look into it because it's kind of like, all right, what's going on where I'm turning my ankle over, doing the same thing that I know so well, but I'm getting a different reaction now. You have to kind of think about that and say, okay, you know, red flag, what's going on? So I originally got that diagnosis in 2014, put it off because I was playing professionally and I didn't want to take any time off, and I knew how to manage it. Like with the tape, I knew how to manage playing with it. It never really caused a problem other than keeping me out here and there for 2 to 3 weeks at a time because of bad sprains. So I have chronic dislocations of my shoulder, and I also have turf toe on both toes. So I was in quite a bit of pain at the end of my 2019-2020 season, and then COVID came and kind of ended our season early, and so I made the decision to try to attempt to get shoulder surgery in that window and potentially do something with my toes. And because I knew that I needed to fix my shoulder, or at least I thought I did, I took that time to also fix my ankle. So what I decided to do was come back to the States, and because of the order that I needed to have surgery, and I needed to start kind of bottom to top, because after you get surgery on, let's say, your toes or your ankle, you need to use crutches for a while, and I wouldn't be able to use crutches if I had recently got a shoulder surgery. So I was starting with the bottom and then working my way up. That kind of all got derailed when we figured out I've got issues with my hip. And so after the ankle surgery, I focused on my hip. So long story short, that is why I decided to do the ankle surgery when I did. If I didn't think that I needed to get other things fixed up and it was just the ankle, I probably could have finished my career with it, to be honest. But I would have eventually had ankle surgery, because if you've got that many issues going on in your ankle and you just ignore it, you'll end up having really bad arthritis down the road, just like a lot of problems. And I wanted to avoid that. So there's a potential that even with surgery you can get arthritis, but it probably is going to push it back a long time. And my ankle is so much more functional now, so we'll get into that at the end. But basically I kind of knew it was so messed up from playing with it and not being able to do certain things. So I came back here, got a quick MRI, and it confirmed that I needed to have those ligaments repaired. It also showed some torn ligaments in the inside of my ankle, and just a bunch of like debris, if you will, I guess, for lack of a better word. And so I actually had incisions on both sides. Basically, he went in and kind of like reconnected my ligaments on the outside of my ankle and anchored them down to my bone tighter so that they're all tightened up and stronger. And then on the inside, he repaired the deltoid ligament, I believe, and cleaned up a bunch of, he said, I think he used the word debris, but just like junk in there. Like I had a little bit of like chipped bone, and I had just a bunch of junk in there floating around that he said he cleaned up. Let's go through a quick little timeline of kind of like the day-to-day progression that I was able to have with like normal things. I'm gonna have a completely separate video for the progression with rehab, so I'm not gonna talk about specific rehab movements in this progression. It'll be more like walking, running, jumping, that kind of stuff. So let me take a quick look at my notes here. So I had surgery on October 9th. After surgery, they put you in a hard cast with no weight bearing. So all crutches or scooter or wheelchair or whatever your preference is for about 2 weeks. Then I got my hard cast off on October 23rd, so about 2 weeks after. And that's when I was put in a walking boot. Basically non-weight bearing for a few days and then slowly add 30%, 60%, 80% to 100% weight. So that took me about 2 weeks. So I just gradually progressed to 1 crutch or 2 crutches but light pressure and walking with it. So then on November 6th, I was full weight bearing on the boot. So walking completely normal in the boot. That lasted for about 2 weeks as well. November 21st was when I decided to start walking without the boot. That progression can be faster if you feel more comfortable. I was a little bit behind there, and I think it was more of a mental thing than anything. I just didn't want to walk around without the boot because I just felt insecure. But they told me to start with a brace, so I think that if I would have started with a brace, I would have been able to put the brace on sooner and then walk like that. But I just felt so uncomfortable in the brace. I had a lot of pain on the bottom of my foot and it literally hurt so bad that I stayed in the boot for about a week longer and then transitioned straight to no brace, walking just normal in a tennis shoe. That's just an example of tailoring it to what you're comfortable with. They wanted me to go about a week walking in the boot, progress to walking with a tennis shoe and a brace, and I just didn't feel comfortable, so I decided to stay in the boot and then transition straight to a tennis shoe. Okay, so that brings us to when I first started running in the Alter G. The Alter G is a treadmill machine that straps you in and inflates with air and basically gives you like anti-gravity powers. So you can select what percentage of your body weight you want to have impacting your ankle in the ground and what percent you want lifted. So I think I started with 80% of my body weight running, and I started with 5 minutes of slow jogging and then slowly progressed to 10 minutes. To be honest, we did not put a lot of emphasis on getting fit or getting like lots of time under my belt in the Alter G. I transitioned pretty quickly, about a month into actual running, and you know, I had some hip issues, and so when I was running in the Alter G, the way that you get into it is with shorts, and then those shorts kind of hook up to the suction that then lifts you, and the shorts are really thick and kind of restrictive, and so I found that they kind of pinched my like natural running gait and made my stance and my legs come in a lot closer than I would like them to, and it hurt my hip a lot. And so I probably only ran in the Alter G like 5 times before I decided that the risks of hurting my hip more weren't worth the benefit of just getting a little bit of cardio in. So I did try to find cardio other ways, but I will say that the more I ran in the Alter G and just on real life grass and pavement, the better the stiffness and the tightness in my foot and toe got. So like I mentioned before, I have turf toe in both toes. Essentially it's like a torn MCL. A lot of people know about the MCL in their knee. Well, like we have one in our toe, and so essentially that's what it is. So I had a lot of pain in like my toe after surgery just because it was so stiff for so long. Anyways, we're getting off topic. Let's focus on the timeline. So then December 20th, I kind of accidentally, I guess, juggled a ball a little bit. So I was like kicking the ball around and juggling it. I was filming a video for something and I needed to juggle a ball. My idea was that I would just be able to balance on my left ankle, but turns out I'm not skilled enough to do that. So my touches were off, and just out of instinct, after I juggled incorrectly and like mishit it with my right foot, and if it went to my left, I just automatically used my left. So I would say like that was when I first started kicking the ball and juggling it a little bit, and it definitely hurt, but it didn't hurt in the sense where like you feel like you're making something worse, just kind of like that pain from the impact, because you haven't done that in so long. And then on December 31st was the first time that I went out to a field and I did plyometrics and I did sprints and I did change of direction like really lightly, but like ladders and single leg hops and all that kind of stuff, just like a real full workout. That was January 31st, yeah. So 3.5-ish months from surgery date to really being out on the field and jumping and running and cutting, not at 100%, but at about 70%, maybe 60. Kicking the ball, really everything, just at a really slow, calm pace. So this is where my journey kind of gets derailed again because of my hip. So I stuck with those types of workouts, lots of just running and plyometrics and ladders for a few months. And then when I got to the point where I felt like I could speed up things and make things more difficult as far as change of direction and sprints, that's when my hip started becoming my main problem. And my hip, just to clarify, my hip was a problem before the ankle surgery. My hip has been a problem since September 2019. So it's been a problem. I just thought it would get better with rest and it didn't. So that started, my hip started rearing its ugly head, and I was basically not able to progress my ankle because of my hip. So I've kind of been at a standstill with my ankle since like February when it started feeling really good, but I was able to continue to run more of like a jog, and things definitely have gotten better since like February when I used to run to now when I can run, as far as like my ankle not hurting, my foot not hurting, and that kind of thing. And then 2 other dates that I just want to mention when I kind of felt like confident in my ankle. So basically from October to the end of January, I felt this constant need to protect the left side of my body. So even if I was walking with a friend that knew that I had recently had surgery, I just felt uncomfortable if anyone was on my left side, or if we were passing someone walking, I would really try to get a lot of distance between me and the person on my left side. Or for instance, I don't have a dog, but a lot of my friends do, and when I was around a dog, I had a lot of insecurity if he would come near my left side or my left ankle, even though dogs are so agile and they never are going to run into you like that, but I always felt like they were. So I would say around the end of January, I started feeling more confident and comfortable with the left side and my left ankle. So we were actually on a vacation up in Vail, and I distinctly remember kind of like swinging my legs around and just being a little bit more natural and free. And when I went to change directions, not always doing like the very cautious, slow turn, and I was able to just kind of like plant my foot and just like turn around. So that took about 3.5, 4-ish months to feel really comfortable and just not all the time hyper vigilant and cautious and just aware of my left side. And then the last thing is the first day I wore heels. So if you know me, you know I love heels. I'm like the 5-inch stiletto type heel lover, even though not anymore. That has changed because it hurts my knees and my back and my ankles, to be quite honest with you, and my toes, my feet, and everything. So on April 3rd, about 6 months after surgery, I wore my first heel. It was maybe a 3.5-inch heel, and it definitely didn't feel comfortable, and like I wasn't super confident, but I was able to wear them for like 2 hours. And so things have gotten a lot better since then, and now I pretty much only wear 3-inch heels now, just because anything more hurts my toes, my feet, and like everything. So I'm able to wear the 3-inch heels really comfortably, and have like no significant issues from surgery or on my ankle, if that makes sense. So please feel free to comment with any questions about timeline stuff or your personal journey. If you have any questions on how you're progressing and all that kind of stuff, I'd be happy to answer. Let's move on to the must-haves that I think you need for a, you know, as smooth as possible recovery. I'm sure there's a ton that I don't know about, but these were the ones that I purchased and had on hand that made things a lot easier, or didn't have on hand and then got later and realized I would have significantly benefited from having them sooner. So let's start with my number one, probably most important one, was my knee scooter. So I left the hospital just with crutches. I think I was on the crutches for about 3-ish weeks, but I very quickly, after getting home, realized that crutches are just a pain in the butt, and I needed something to kind of be able to just like sit down on or push myself around that would roll easier, because it's so hard to carry things when you have crutches, and it's just a whole thing. My right leg was getting so fatigued from basically doing like squats up and down, and I just fully recommend a knee scooter. It made things so much easier. I ended up using one of our office chairs, like a chair like this kind of, to roll around for, I don't know, about a month before we got the knee scooter. And I ended up kind of like running into the walls and like scuffing them up, and it was just a disaster. So in the end, I wish I would have had a knee scooter right from surgery. It is so much easier and so much faster. Like, you can go faster than the people that you're walking with that are constantly having to wait for you if you're on crutches, and your armpits and your palms don't hurt. So number one, for sure, is a knee scooter. Number two is a shower stool and handle. It is really dangerous to like get in and out. It doesn't seem like it's that hard, and then it is, if that makes sense. Like the first couple times, I like fully single leg hopped from outside the tub into the tub, and with like the ledge for a bathtub and everything. And I was like, what was I thinking? Literally, am I dumb? Because the water was already running, and I easily could have just like slipped and just totally ate it. So I don't know what I was thinking, but as time went on, I got smarter and I sat down and then spun in, but I don't know what that was about. It was like honestly ridiculous. Never do that. And I had a lot of blood pooling in my ankle. So basically, if I was vertical and my foot was like below my heart for a really long time, I would get a lot of pressure and blood pooling in my foot. And that probably was because of the nerve block that I had. I had a local nerve block. So even a quick shower, I would start getting a lot of pain in my foot. It's really hard to balance on one leg for like a whole shower. Like, your glutes just start to fatigue and burn out. So I would end up putting more pressure on my left ankle than I should have. So I ended up getting a shower stool that kind of suctions to the bottom of your shower for safety, and then you can just sit on it and let the water hit you. And then the one that I got, which I'll link below, also came with a handle that you could put on the shower, which I think really helps too. Because like I said, your strong leg, the one that didn't get surgery, just starts to fatigue a lot because it's doing everything. And, you know, at the same time, your surgery leg starts to atrophy, and so it's just a lot to ask of one leg. The next thing would be a ankle-specific ice pack. If you ever tried to ice anything super bony, you know that it's really hard to get the ice to hit all of the surface area that you want it, especially your ankle. And it's also really painful if you try to use like crushed ice or ice cubes. They can like dig into your really sensitive ankle. So I got a ankle specific one, and it has like a bunch of straps. It literally looks like an ankle brace, only it's filled with fluid that can freeze and then ice your ankle. And it was a savior. If you think that you might get really swollen and need ice a lot, maybe get two so that they can rotate. So as one is on you, the other one is icing, because it does take probably an hour to 2 hours to get like fully cold. So you have to wait that long in between. I do think that it's recommended you do 20 minutes on and then an hour off anyways. But if you just think that you need it more often, then maybe get two. Another item that I think was really helpful for me, mainly because I have a bad low back. And so laying for a long period of time tends to hurt me anyways, and especially if my legs aren't elevated. So I got this leg elevation wedge, and I got the one that has kind of like, it's curved up on the sides. It helped because I slept with this, and so it makes it so your leg won't like fall off in the middle of the night. my shoulder just popped. It felt not so good. I think that this really helped my low back, and I lived with it. So I was constantly sitting or sleeping, and so I just had my legs propped up a little bit, and it saved my low back. Another thing that I should have mentioned with the shower, but just a little cast cover. I can link the one that I have, but they're not all created equally. I've had like cast covers in the past that have leaked, so I was like uber cautious with this. So I bought the cover that people say they just use that, but then I ended up taping around the top too. So it was like a whole process, but I didn't shower every day, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Oh, something in my eye. Send out. It's super like thick, so you won't like bust at the end. And if you don't get something like that, ceramic wrap plastic wrap works just the same, but you have to just be really careful that you didn't leave any spaces. You don't want to get your cast wet. It's only 2 weeks, and it's just worth it. Even if you don't shower for 2 weeks, I mean, whatever. You're not doing anything anyway. Definitely try not to get your cast wet because it will get like moldy and it will just be a disaster. Last specific item would be compression socks. These were useful for me when I went back to work in the office. So right after surgery, I was working from home and I was able to have my legs elevated pretty much all day. But after I went back into the office, then my legs were below me all day. And I mean, my foot would get so swollen. I would wear Cade's shoes because my foot would get so swollen that it wouldn't fit in my shoes. So the compression socks helped a lot. They don't take away all the pain, but they take away a lot of it. And they keep everything really tight. And then I would get home and take it off and ice and then elevate. And it would really help kind of that middle ground where I had to have my legs on the ground. So compression socks, compression tights. I got 2 different kinds. I got a long sock to the top of my knee, and then I also got an ankle sock that I started wearing once I got a little bit more like normal. So I would say probably like 4 months out. I started wearing that if I knew I was going to be up and about for a long time. All right, last thing I want to mention that I implemented, but it's not necessarily an item, is just an anti-inflammatory diet. So I typically have like a little bit of a lenient diet. I'm not like a crazy nuthead with my diets, even though I guess that depends on who's judging, but I went really strict on my diet right after surgery for about 2 or 3 months. I've got kind of like chronic inflammation issues because of things like endometriosis and gut issues. So a little bit of sugar, a little bit of alcohol. I mean, I like blow up like a balloon. So I know I have, you know, the ability to have issues with inflammation, and I wanted to make sure that I was giving my best efforts to recover. So I went on a pretty strict anti-inflammatory diet. Basically no processed anything, no processed sugars or sugars really of any sort, really low kind of like sugary fruits, no alcohol, low amounts of caffeine, supplements like turmeric and ginger, and most of the caffeine I was drinking was like only green tea, low amounts of red meat. Let's see, no dairy, no gluten, but I don't eat those anyway. Limiting kind of like soy, like no processed soy products, and corn. Corn is such, like, I have been tested and retested and self-tested and all these kind of things for like food intolerances, and corn, y'all, makes my joints hurt so bad. And corn is in everything. Like, little derivatives of corn are everywhere. So learn all 365 ways that corn can be called in labeling. No, I'm joking. But I just tried to focus on a kind of plant-forward whole foods diet, and I think that I benefited a lot from it. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the mental side of things, and the mental side, but also just the natural progression, which you kind of mentioned. But you can see in my timeline that I laid out, things seem linear, but all of those successes are separated by either a month or 2 or 3. So in reality, the progression mentally and physically of this recovery, and any recovery from a big surgery, is not linear. I mean, you have like your highs and your lows, and that's exactly what I had. I had the benefit, if you want to call it that, of already having many surgeries and recovering from a lot of injuries. So it probably was a little bit easier for me than someone who, let's say, this is their first surgery. But even then it wasn't easy, right? I had a lot of doubts of myself, which I think I would recommend not having. I think even with the doubts, what kept me most of the time in a pretty positive state of mind was kind of knowing that if I put in the work, I know that there'll be an outcome. And I think that that is something to remember. If you ever start feeling bad for yourself or questioning your decisions, just know that what's happened has happened. You've made the decision, so own it, and the outcome is what you make it, is what I'm trying to say. I just had to keep telling myself that on the highs and the lows, right? So one of my main goals throughout it was when I realized I was getting here, especially when I was getting here, I tried to bring it back down to like, okay, we had a good day, let's not get too hopeful, because that kind of sets you up for this, like no matter what. Because even if you get back to where you were the day before, now you think, oh, I went down. But if you just stay the course and realize that there'll be ups and downs, like you just tell yourself, okay, there's gonna be ups and downs. I already know that. And the finish line is so far away that you just have to endure the ups and downs, and eventually you'll get to the finish line. And if within those ups and downs you work hard, the finish line is going to be nicer than if you don't. Let me get off my soapbox and finally get into kind of my overall feelings on my decision and where I'm at now and what I'm still dealing with. So I am a little over a year out, and I 100% fully think that I made the right decision. My left ankle is now my good ankle, and my right ankle is now my bad ankle, which is swapped from a year ago. So now when I run, when I do exercises, when I am just in my day-to-day, when I'm wearing heels, whatever it is, my right ankle is the one that I'm constantly thinking about and that is constantly hurting. My left ankle is a lot better. I don't know if it is fully to where I could play a 90-minute game, or it's fully strengthened to where I could strike a ball the furthest I've ever been able to strike it, but that's because of my hip. I think that I would be there if I was playing for the last 5 months and not playing, you know what I mean? I was able to do everything that I'm able to do right now with my ankle 5 months ago, and the only reason I haven't progressed since then is because I can't physically do it with my hip. So that being said, I still have some issues remaining from the surgery. So they're not necessarily specifically on my ankle. My ankle is better, but it has impacted other parts of my body. So the sensitivity on my foot and my ankle, but mainly like my foot and my toes, is still really high. So if Cade tickles my foot, or if I step on a cold ground or something pokey or warm ground, everything is just a heightened sensitivity. So if you do the same thing to both my feet, my left is like, whoa, and my right is like, oh, that's normal. I think that that probably has to do with some of the nerve damage that happens kind of inherently from surgery, and maybe the nerve block that I got because I chose to go that route. All in all, I had that with every surgery I've had, and it eventually gets better. It does take a long time. It's just part of the game. I've also got nerve tightness, I guess, and muscle tightness from basically behind my knee, down my calf, into my Achilles, but specifically behind my knee. I've always dealt with some nerve tightness, I think, behind my knees my whole life, and I've done a lot of like nerve threading and things like that to help it. And if you're dealing with the same thing, you can maybe talk to your PT about nerve threading, I believe is what it's called. That's definitely something that I'm still dealing with. Like, I'm constantly trying to stretch, and I've got some serious limitations on my left side. Like, even I can't do an RDL, I can't do a lot of things that require me to kind of stretch that hamstring. And it concerns me a bit for my left hamstring and maybe glute, because, and calf probably. I just am nervous that when I get back to playing, that they'll be a little bit too tight and bound up, and then increase my probability of an injury. So I want to continue to work on that a lot, and I probably could do a better job. So I've still got kind of tightness and pain on my arch, and I don't know if that's ever gonna get better. We'll have to see what it feels like when I tape up and play and that kind of thing. And overall, I've just got a little bit of stiffness throughout my foot. I still have the bad toe, so it's all kind of related to that. And recently I've been, my ankle's been like popping in a relieving way. My right does it all the time. I actually kind of look at it as a positive in a way, because sometimes your ankle can get stiff and like not pop and release like that when you kind of twist it around, and it just feels really like normal, I guess, like, if that makes sense. Like, after surgery, your ankle doesn't feel normal. Nothing is doing what it usually does. And I kind of feel like it's finally getting to the point where it's doing like what it normally does, where it's like get stiff and then I can pop it and it's just back to kind of normal. I still do like rehab every once in a while. I'm sure that when I get back to playing after hip surgery, I will have some limitations and some new hurdles and road bumps to overcome. And I'm kind of excited for that, to be honest, because right now it just feels like so limiting. And I don't have a ton of, I guess, motivation to get my ankle better when my hip is not better. So I'm thinking, what did I miss? What did I miss? And I just realized I didn't mention that before getting surgery, I went to 3 other specialists or surgeons and asked for their opinion. So I got multiple opinions on the subject and on my ankle, and I really, really recommend that. I'm in the process of that right now with my hip. So it's just good to get different people's opinions so that you ultimately can make the most informed decision possible and get all the information and just feel good about your decision. I think that that's so important. I'm currently pushing off my hip surgery a month because I didn't feel confident in my decision and I just didn't feel comfortable going into surgery on the date that I had scheduled. So I pushed it back a month in hopes of being more mentally prepared for the recovery that I have to be mentally prepared for in order for it to go smoothly and the surgery to be a success. So anyways, that's enough. My throat is hoarse. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this helped anybody that had any questions about a rostrum, ankle surgery, or any type of surgery. As always, please feel free to comment down below or even DM me with any questions. I try to get back to everything, and if I don't be afraid to double text me or double message me. I am making these videos to help people because I didn't feel like I had a lot of information going into my surgery, and being informed and aware of what your timeline should look like and what your progression should look like and what some other people deal with as far as setbacks and mental state, even things like diet and items that helped, those types of things are all important and useful, and they should be shared. And it's really hard to find information like that. It's really hard to find anything that's not from a doctor, and I think it's important to get information from people that have had the same experience as you, because not every doctor has had the surgery that they're doing. The thing about surgeons is that they're so specific. They're so practiced in their specialty, and they're so educated, and they're so knowledgeable about what they're doing when they cut you open, but they don't deal with the recovery and the mental side of it and the day-to-day, how do I get to the bathroom effectively? How do I limit inflammation when I'm at work? How do I shower? Those types of things. So if you know someone that's having an ankle surgery, feel free to share this video with them. And I appreciate you all, and I love you, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!